For most of human history, our senses defined the limits of our world. We could only perceive what our eyes could see, what our ears could hear, what our skin could feel. Beyond those narrow windows existed a vast ocean of signals, magnetic fields, infrared radiation, radio waves, subtle electrical patterns, entire dimensions of information flowing silently around us every second. To us, they were invisible. But what if they didn't have to be? What if a tiny piece of technology, small enough to sit beneath the skin, could quietly expand the boundaries of human perception? And what if that technology already exists, but almost no one is talking about it? The story begins not in the distant future, but in laboratories and garages scattered around the world, where a small group of scientists, engineers, and biohackers began asking a strange question. Not how to build better machines, but how to upgrade the human body itself. For decades, microchips have been shrinking. What once filled entire rooms now fits inside devices smaller than a grain of rice. These chips already power our phones, track packages across continents, guide airplanes through storms, and store the information of entire libraries. But some researchers began imagining a different use. Instead of placing chips inside machines, what if we place them inside people? At first, the idea sounded like science fiction. But quietly, experiments began. One of the earliest examples came from simple RFID implants. These microchips, about the size of a grain of rice, were placed just beneath the skin of the hand. They didn't do anything dramatic. They simply transmitted a small signal when scanned. Yet that small signal could unlock doors, start computers, store digital business cards, or even replace keys and passwords. Suddenly, the body itself became an interface. But for some researchers, that was only the beginning. Because once a chip could communicate with the outside world, it could also begin to translate signals our bodies normally cannot detect. And that is where things became truly fascinating. In 2013, a British cybernetics professor named Kevin Warwick performed a series of experiments that pushed this idea further. He implanted a small device into his nervous system, allowing computers to send signals directly into his brain. At first, the sensations were simple, tiny pulses like faint taps inside his nervous system. But as the signals became more complex, something remarkable happened. His brain began interpreting them as entirely new forms of perception, not sight, not sound, but something else. Meanwhile, outside traditional universities, a growing movement of biohackers began experimenting with sensory implants of their own. One of the most famous devices is called the North Sense. It's a small implant worn on the chest that constantly vibrates in the direction of Earth's magnetic north. At first, users simply feel a faint buzzing. But over time, their brains begin to adapt. After weeks or months, many report that they no longer feel the vibration as an external signal. Instead, they experience a subtle internal awareness of direction. As if a new sense has quietly emerged, much like how birds navigate across continents, or how sharks detect electric fields in the ocean. The human brain, it turns out, is astonishingly adaptable. Neuroscientists call this ability neuroplasticity. When the brain receives a new type of signal repeatedly, it can learn to interpret that signal as meaningful information. What begins as noise gradually becomes perception. And that means the limits of human senses may not be biological after all. They may simply be technological. Imagine feeling the presence of electromagnetic fields around power lines. Imagine sensing approaching storms through changes in atmospheric pressure. Imagine detecting infrared heat signatures in complete darkness. Or even perceiving Wi-Fi networks as subtle patterns in space. These ideas might sound strange, but early prototypes already exist. Researchers have built wearable devices that convert ultraviolet light into audible tones. Others translate seismic vibrations into tactile pulses on the skin. With enough time, the brain can learn to interpret these signals almost instinctively. But microchips make something even more radical possible: permanent sensory upgrades. Small implants connected to nerves could translate entirely new categories of data into sensations the brain learns to understand. The result would not be a gadget you hold. It would be a sense you possess. And this raises a deeper question. If humans could add new senses, how would it change the way we experience reality? Consider this. Right now, your perception of the world is built from just 5 primary sensory channels. Everything you know, every memory, every emotion, every moment of awareness, flows through those narrow streams of information. But nature proves that reality is far richer than what humans can detect. Bees see ultraviolet patterns in flowers that guide them to nectar. Snakes detect heat signatures from warm-blooded animals in total darkness. Migratory birds appear to perceive the Earth's magnetic field like a living compass. These abilities feel almost supernatural to us, yet they are simply different ways of sensing the same universe we inhabit. So, if technology allowed us to expand our senses, we might begin experiencing aspects of reality that were always there, but hidden from us. Some scientists believe this could lead to entirely new ways of thinking. Our brains evolved alongside our senses. The information we receive shapes the way we reason, navigate, and understand the world. Add new senses, and the structure of thought itself might change. People might develop spatial awareness beyond vision. Engineers might feel electromagnetic patterns inside complex machines. Astronomers might experience cosmic radiation as subtle sensory signals. Reality could become far more textured than the version we currently perceive. But there is also another side to this story, one that makes some experts deeply uneasy. Because a chip that sends signals to the brain could also receive them. And if technology becomes integrated with our nervous systems, the boundary between biology and machines begins to blur. Who controls the data? Who controls the signals? Could sensory implants one day be hacked, manipulated, or monitored? These questions remain largely unanswered. And that may be why many of the most intriguing experiments in human sensory augmentation are happening quietly, outside mainstream attention. Small communities of biohackers continue to test new implants. Some embed magnets in their fingertips that allow them to feel electromagnetic pulses from nearby electronics. Others experiment with devices that translate digital data streams into tactile patterns on the skin. Each experiment is small, but together they hint at something profound. The human body may not be a finished design. It may be a platform, one that technology is slowly beginning to expand. And the forgotten microchip at the center of this story might represent the earliest step toward a future where humans no longer experience the world through just 5 senses, but through many more, perhaps dozens. Senses that allow us to feel the invisible architecture of the universe surrounding us every moment. The magnetic currents of the planet, the silent networks of machines, the hidden energies moving through space. For now, these possibilities remain on the edge of science and experimentation. But history shows that today's strange ideas often become tomorrow's ordinary tools. The smartphone once seemed impossible. The internet once sounded absurd, and yet both reshaped human life within a single generation. So the real question may not be whether sensory microchips will evolve. The real question is what humanity will become when they do. Because the moment we begin adding new senses, we may also begin discovering a completely new version of reality.